Okay, good evening and welcome to the presentations for the joint Henley and Harpston Neighbourhood Plan Review, known as the JHHNP Review. This is the second evening of three. The final session will be tomorrow, Thursday, the 1st of October. I am Councillor Ken Arlett, and as Chairman of the joint Henley and Harpston Neighbourhood Plan Review Working Group, I will be chairing the meeting this evening. We have two Town Council officers with us. We have the Deputy Town Clerk and Planning and Project Manager, Kath Adams, and the Planning Officer, Jodie Rhymes, who is the lead officer of the joint Henley and Harpston Neighbourhood Plan. The JHHNP Review Working Group chose ACOM Infrastructure and Environmental UK Limited to put forward site options and assessment as required. Over 40 sites were put forward, and over the next 3 evenings, 10 of these will be putting forward their presentations. In tonight's presentation, we will be seeking information on why the developers feel their application will be best suited for Henley and Harpston. There will be no decision making this evening. If members of the public do not get to the opportunity to ask their questions this evening, in the future, there will be a 6 weeks consultation period for the public, which will include presentations, hopefully, on the top floor of the town hall. This obviously depending on where we are with COVID-19. And I never thought I'd use that as an excuse. My aim is to split each presentation into 3 segments. The first one will be a 20 to 25 minute presentation. The second will be 15 minutes for the working group members to ask questions or make statements. And the third one will be 15 minutes for the members of the public to ask questions or make statements. I will allow 1 minute for a question and 2 minutes for a statement. If time allows and there is more time after the residents have spoken, asked questions, I will allow the working group to ask further questions. I will not accept any derogatory comments on presentations. The presentations this evening will be in the following: 6:30 Swiss Farm International, Marlow Road; 7:30 Thames Poultry Farmhouse; and 8:30 the land west of the Fair Mile. Jodie and Kath, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I'd just like to say to people that this is being streamed live on YouTube. It will remain on YouTube for a couple of weeks to come. If you'd rather not have your face on YouTube, then do feel free to switch your camera off. Okay, thank you. Right, I'll now hand over to Jake Collins, who is going to represent the Swiss Farm International proposal. He has some other colleagues with him and he will tell us who they are. So I'll hand over to you, Jake, and you can take over the screen with your presentation. Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arlett. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address all of you this evening. I'm not particularly savvy on technology, so I'm going to try and bring the presentation up as best I can, and hopefully it will work. Has that worked for people?
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
So people see that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's great. Okay, well, I'm Jake Collins. I'm a planning consultant acting for the Borlase family. I'm joined this evening by Neil Thomas, who is a local resident and is assisting the Borlase family in bringing forward the delivery of the site, hopefully. Neil has some experience in development and he's not acting in a development capacity in this particular instance, but is there to help and guide the family. Also with me this evening is Mark Wildish, who is an architect. Mark has a significant amount of experience in dealing with residential developments in and around market towns. So in essence, I don't think I will take up the full 20-25 minutes for the presentation, but I've just structured it with a series of slides just to run through a quick introduction, descriptions of the site, some of the work that we've done in terms of looking at opportunities and constraints that are presented by the site, and that then leading through to some benefits and a draft proposal and a conclusion. What I ought to say at the outset is this is not a developer-driven scheme. This is a family-based scheme which has at its heart delivering some legacy and benefit for Henley and the town and its residents. And to that extent, we kind of approach the site very much with an open book and a flexible stance as to what can be delivered. And that may be predominantly a residential-led scheme, but with opportunities to enhance that proposal with community-based facilities that might be of benefit to Henley, but driven by the people of Henley and what they may suggest. So I've touched already on who is here with me. I should also say that Joseph Borlase is with us, a member of the family, and they have been Henley-based family for over 3 generations. And as I indicated, they are looking at bringing forward a legacy-based project and embracing a scheme that will be of benefit to Henley. And the value to the owner in doing that is to make a positive contribution to the needs of the town and delivering a scheme which, not only when measured in design terms, but also social and environmental terms, would be of benefit to the town. Now, I'm assuming most people listening this evening will have a good grasp of the site we're talking about, but on the slide in front of you, in red hatching, is the site. It extends to 5.5 acres. That's just over 2 hectares on the western side of the Marlow Road.
Is there any chance you can make the presentation full screen? Because at the moment it's taking up about 1/5 of the centre. If you put it on like actual presentation mode, can you change it from the edit mode?
This is where my lack of technology savviness comes into play. I might just ask a colleague actually to help me out with how we increase the size of that.
Can we just say that the site is at the top of the plan where I'm looking?
Yeah,
near the top of the plan.
First time, it worked perfectly.
If you look at the top of the screen, there is a plus and the minus button. You may be able to plus it to make it bigger. Left a bit.
Left a bit. Oh, that one.
The plus one.
One more.
Ah,
Lovely.
And one more.
is that better?
One more.
One more.
No.
Yeah, and
I'll tell you what, I'll go 175% might do the job.
Yeah. Thank you.
that'll do.
I've learned something else today. There we go. So yes, the site is the diagonally hatched area of land on the western side of the Marlow Road. It's in effect sandwiched between Henley Rugby Club to the south west and Swiss Farm to the northeast. Broadly a flat section of land, generally unconstrained, and currently benefits from access via the Marlow Road. As you'll see on the plan, the site is indeed well related to Henley Town. It's only a short level walk from the town centre and has a good degree of connectivity to the town with ready, safe and convenient access to all of the services and facilities that are provided in the town centre and to related public transport links. We've also indicated on that plan some of those services and also the relationship to existing schools within the town, which equally are within a reasonable walk distance of the site. That's a slightly enhanced view of the site, and we've looked at what opportunities and constraints there are to the potential delivery. There are, in fact, very few constraints to delivery. The site is outside of the floodplain. Initial technical work has revealed that there are no drainage issues associated with potential development on the site. Equally, there is no historic uses on that land which might have given rise to issues of contamination. And as a grassland field, there are very few biodiversity or ecological limitations connected with the land. And it does indeed have good and potentially safe access onto the highway, in relation to which there are no known capacity limitations. I can also say that in legal terms, there are no particular constraints to bringing the site forward for development. Notwithstanding those limitations on delivery, we do, as I've mentioned, have a very much an open book approach to what might come forward on the site. And it's really one that we see that hopefully will maximise the benefits to Henley, and ultimately whatever opportunities the site presents, the owner would welcome the opportunity to work in collaboration with the town council and members of the working group to bring that forward. What we've looked at in terms of opportunities for development is predominantly a residential-led community-based scheme, which incorporates a mix and range of dwellings types. And there is scope in particular to delivering a Henley-specific housing mix, which focuses on meeting the particular needs and requirements of residents of Henley. And we say that not only in the context of affordable social housing, but also in terms of private housing and the mix of units that people in the town are looking to move on to, up to, or indeed downsizing into. We also want to bring forward a scheme that provides for sustainable living, and sustainable living not only in terms of design, but also the layout and form of the development, what it allows people to do with their individual dwellings, and equally recognising the close proximity that the site has in terms of its relationship to existing services and facilities in the town. We've also indicated a potential for community-based uses on the site. Again, very much open and flexible as to what that might be, but there may well be, and indeed is, an opportunity to reserve some land on the site for those purposes. And also the ability to deliver and enhance landscape and biodiversity improvements through development of landscaping. Having said all of that, we do appreciate that there are constraints. We acknowledge that the site is, as indeed most of the land around Henley, located within the Chilterns area of outstanding natural beauty. We've done some initial landscape appraisal work looking at key views of the site from public rights of way in the vicinity of the site. And that's indicated that any potential landscape impacts could be fully and appropriately mitigated with a strategic landscape-led development for the site. We also acknowledge and recognise in terms of more localised constraints that there are some significant trees of high amenity value along at least two boundaries of the site, one with Marlow Road and secondary with the rugby club. And indeed the layout of any future development on the site needs to respond to the constraints that may be presented by their relationship with those surrounding land uses, and in particular the rugby club and any existing residential activities at Swiss Farm. There's also recognition that the site is, whilst itself not within the conservation area, is bounded on two sides by the conservation area, with the land to the south being in the conservation area and directly to the east of Marlow Road. Again, though, with sensitive design, we don't believe that that would be a particular constraint. And indeed, we could maintain and preserve the setting of the conservation area. So in terms of the draft proposal, what you're seeing on the screen is literally in draft form. As I've said once or twice already, it is very much an open book opportunity on the site. And we believe a scheme could deliver a range of benefits to assist with a very sustainable and highly accessible development. But in terms of the plan that you've got in front of you, that currently shows circa 40 dwellings. That equates to a density of development of around 20 dwellings per hectare. That density can be varied. We probably see density somewhere in the order of 20 to 25 dwellings per hectare being most appropriate for an edge of settlement site. But of course, density can vary depending on the size of dwellings that come forward. And ultimately, if we were looking at a Henley-specific housing mix and those requirements directed towards smaller units, then that density could naturally be increased without compromising other elements of the scheme. We also felt 20 units per hectare or that order would be appropriate to give reasonable sized gardens, because one of the things we're anxious to potentially deliver through the scheme is self-sufficient living, and having reasonable sized gardens does facilitate the ability for residents to perhaps grow their own produce and so on and so forth. But there's another element of the scheme that I will come on to that also potentially offers benefits in that respect. Looking at a mix and range of unit sizes, as I've said, that can be directed by specific local requirements, and that is private and affordable homes, and equally open to the prospect of a proportion of self-build plots if the local market and local needs require that. Again, open to those suggestions. We have in the sort of northwestern corner of the site indicated the provision of an area of land for allotments and community orchard. again, to help facilitate sustainable forms of living. The southern section of the site, which is outlined in blue actually on that slide you have in front of you, is currently shown as a reserved area of land potentially for community use. That blue area, in fact, could be anywhere on the site and could be of any reasonable size to facilitate what the town and residents might see as a benefit in community use terms, again, being open and flexible as to what that use might be. There's good access onto the Marlow Road. We can enhance and improve connectivity and safety with a safe pedestrian crossing point on the road to allow full access by foot into the town centre. And the scheme, as shown, does retain the existing boundary trees. Landscaping can be enhanced and indeed the initial views of the landscape consultant in respect of views into the site and its relationship to the AOB indicates that with strategic landscaping we can mitigate, as I've mentioned, those effects. There are also some off-site existing public rights of way, one to the west and others to the east, and there is land within the family ownership that if desired, could facilitate connections from the development to those existing public rights of way. So that very much is the concept as we see it, but it is at the moment very, very draft, open to discussion and open to changes.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak, Jake?
No, I don't believe so. They may do in answer to any questions, but I was going to just wrap up with a short conclusion. Yeah. Unless you've got any questions now, or would you rather I finish?
No, just go for it.
Okay, I shall go for it. So just to conclude, the site is in a highly sustainable and accessible central location. It is deliverable with no major or significant constraints. It is a bespoke, legacy-driven project. It has no fixed parameters. It is fully flexible, open to full engagement and collaboration with the Town Council and working group members. It would, we believe, make a meaningful and specific contribution to meeting the housing needs of Henley and has the ability to deliver community benefits such as allotments, community orchard and reserved land for an unspecified use. And we may remain open and flexible. And on that basis, we hope you will agree that the site represents a significant opportunity to deliver a scheme that would be of substantial benefit for the town. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, excellent, Jake. If you could give us our page back.
Right.
Okay, magic.
Yeah.
Okay, working group. Who would like to ask a question first on this one? Don't be shy. Michelle Thomas.
Good evening, thanks for the presentation. There wasn't any reference to the conclusion on this site from the ACOM report.
Sorry, is that in terms of the number of units?
No, in terms of what they actually said about the site.
Well, we have looked at that, and we do feel that with the site itself is capable of accommodating a level of development, and that level of development can be achieved without material or significant harm to, as I say, the AOAB or conservation area. But we do maintain a very open view as to what that might be, and if there are specific issues or concerns that members and others feel ought to be addressed, then we can address that through the kind of the process of discussion and negotiation. It's very much a collaborative process as we see it.
So just for the benefit of anyone listening, if my memory serves me well, it came up as a red site, which is not suitable for building.
Well,
is that right?
Yeah, can I just interject there? It wasn't exactly that. You're fairly close, but it wasn't that. Basically, what it said was it's outside the built-up area of Henley. That's what it did say, and it also determined as well, depending on the new local plan, where we now up to 2035, I think. And there's some wording in there about that, which basically states that if insufficient houses are found within the, if sufficient houses are found within the boundary, there wouldn't be any need for houses outside of the boundary. I'm not saying it said word for word, but that's the basis of what ACOM was saying.
Mm. I think this, I think, the ACOM report is out there, and this is just my feedback to you is be open and honest with people, members of the public, about what's been said. I know I accept that your plan is in development. It's been in the very early stages, but I think I would be very forthcoming with the public about that, what the findings of that report. Thank you.
Would you like to answer that, Jake?
No, that's fine. I very clearly understand the point that has been raised. So thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I think as I've said, it at the moment it is outside the built-up area. One would probably question that. Obviously, you've got Swiss Farm, which has been there as many years as I can remember. Must have been there nearly 70 years now. The units on there, but that's not classed as for some reason as the built-up area. So I think eventually you should make a comment on that, be it now or when we do a future presentation, hopefully in the town hall.
I think if I can say something,
Yeah.
we entered this for the call for sites, which I think correctly said, if the local plan doesn't bring forward enough units, then this is potentially a site. It could be potentially looked at as an infill. There's built up, there's buildings around it. It's got great access. The location to town is better than most of these other 11 sites that have been put forward. So we're just asking to be considered, really. And I think there's a policy 1.16, which might well back the infill that's coming through.
And that's the point I was making. So you've well covered that, and I accept that.
Okay, thank you.
Who else would like to ask a question? Lawrence Plant.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great presentation. A lot of it sounds fantastic. Love the sustainable, love the legacy driven part, but I've not been a councillor for that many years, but I keep seeing developments come up and various projects be raised, and they normally come back to a word which is viable, and that's normally a method for getting rid of much of the affordable or sustainable or legacy driven or back for the community elements, as housing numbers force that, or as a profitability search seems to be more important. And just kind of looking at this one, if it truly is the sustainable and legacy driven, which is more important than the kind of the P&L at the end of it, then fantastic. But I'd hate to see it become one of these projects that again starts with great rhetoric, but once it starts to come down to a profit hunt, those parts of it diminish slowly, and something that starts as a sustainable or legacy driven shifts towards a classic property development site. So it's where the ultimate priority lies, I guess, as much a statement as a question.
Well, if I can, I'll start to answer this one. So I've been speaking to the Borlase family for probably 3-4 years and saying that actually they should enter this into the local plan just to have the opportunity. So whether the town want this or need this is up to the town councillors, yourself, local residents. If you look in the presentation, we've offered, there's half an acre there just to be done with it as you wish. And that can be anything from extra parking, play areas, anything. The Borlase family also looking at the extra half an acre just to the northwest of the land for orchards or allotments. So that's gifting that across. The ACOM survey said that the actual site could take up to 73 units. That's a little bit overdeveloped, I would say, too dense. So we've put in a very simple drawing, which it takes 41 units now. That can easily be changed to 50, 60 if the council wants it. And we still got that half an acre area as well. So it's really whatever the backing of the council wants. There was comments on Monday about social renting. I see no reason why we can't look into that. There's options there.
Okay. Thank you, Neil. Don Barraclough.
Thank you, Ken. The ACOM report talked about an area of archaeological constraint to the south of the site. You didn't mention that. I'm not sure what that is even.
There was mentions of within 150 and 200 meters of historical points, but I think that was actually generally getting towards town. I couldn't spot anything that
Everybody know
survey was
what it
really
is?
pointing towards? Do you know particularly what that was, Don?
No, it's just, it's in the report. It doesn't amplify what they're talking about.
It doesn't, does it? No.
Does anybody
No,
know?
I could think I can add to that slightly. We've done some initial research with the county council and the archaeologist. That response indicates that there are no limitations or restrictions connected particularly with the site, and by the site I mean the land within its bounds, and that any archaeological interest is further to the south towards the historic core. Now that's the indications are that there are no limitations or constraints to the site itself, but it's understood that that interest sits further to the south.
Thank you.
Jackie Walker.
Yes, hello, thank you for the presentation. I wanted to just get some clarification on the land, that I understand it correctly, it's where the visitors on match days to the rugby club will park, that's correct?
That's correct, yes.
And generally more in the area that you have outlined in blue, so that could be, as you have previously said, it could be for car parking. That is an area that we've been trying to encourage people who visit Henley to park at and walk into town. So I wanted to raise that point. And if it were to go that way, it would be very good to take account of lots of EV charging points.
Yes, that's a good point. The actual, if I go one step further, in fact, so I'm actually a local resident. I'm actually a coach down at Henley Hawks. My son plays down there, so I'm quite keen to make sure that there's some solutions to help parking there, which will help the town parking. At the moment, it's not a wonderful field. It's I park there every week. Half the time in the winter, you can't get off it.
Yeah.
And it's the access isn't wonderful down the Marlow Road with cyclists going along, with little children crossing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a solution there that can help everybody. So whether it's that little part of land, which is a half an acre, which could be made into a hard standing parking, free parking, electric charging for people to walk into town, that's definitely something that could be considered. We are actually also talking to another landowner, which I can't quite say who yet, but they are very, very keen for us to help them with some hard servicing for parking, which is it's probably better than the field. It's a 5-minute walk to the rugby club, to the town, and they're very keen to chat with ourselves and the rugby club in due course. So I think that's a better solution overall.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's okay.
Jodie, would you like to ask any questions on this?
I just wanted to pick up again about obviously 100% of the site is in the AONB, and you did touch on it in terms of your presentation, but I just wanted to go into a bit more detail about how you would mitigate against the impact of that.
Yeah, certainly. What we haven't done thus far is undertake a full landscape and visual impact assessment, but we've had key receptor viewpoints analysed from Public Rights of Way Network and other receptors, be they public or private. And there is an acknowledgement quite clearly that the site is of value and does make a contribution to scenic qualities of the AONB. The indications that we've got thus far is that with a scheme of an appropriate density and landscape driven with strategic planting at appropriate locations that could mitigate the key views from those receptor points, that a neutral position in landscape terms can be achieved. Now that I will say is an initial appraisal, and we will be looking to undertake additional work, but that was the findings we've got to date.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing else?
Also, if you said that it had no biodiversity issues, I think that's quite a statement. Have you got evidence to support that? Are you looking to provide net gain with this development?
Yeah, we've undertaken initial phase 1 ecological survey, which I perhaps ought to caveat when I say it's got no substantive sort of ecological constraints. We would be certainly looking to deliver the national target as a bare minimum of a 10% improvement. And I think we've got an opportunity to actually go well beyond that 10% improvement on the ecological position as it stands at the present time.
Okay, and also just finally, with regards to climate change, you have mentioned about providing EV, and is there anything else you're looking at in terms of the scheme to mitigate against greenhouse gas emissions?
So did you mention PV?
EV,
sorry.
Yeah.
No, we would look to incorporate all the most up-to-date requirements in terms of sustainable living and how that can be achieved. I ought to put my hand up and say I acted as a consultant for Thames Town Council in producing their neighbourhood plan. Feels like a long time ago now, and I suspect it probably was. And one of the key elements there was delivery of a green living plan for the town, and we would look to embrace some of the principles on site specific and also wider contributions that we can make across the town as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else wish to ask a question? Can I just go back to, sorry, who was that? Kath, sorry.
Kath. I think Councillor Gavashak would like to speak.
He seems to have disappeared.
He hasn't got his video.
Oh, there he is. He's back. Okay.
Right. Thanks.
Go on, Stefan.
I was waiting patiently because, of course, I'm not on the committee, so therefore it's quite right that the members of the committee go first. Firstly, to introduce myself, I'm Stefan. I'm Town, District and County Councillor for Henley as well. One of the things that we haven't touched on at the moment is that I believe that, sorry, thank you for your presentation. And this must be a first for Henley. We've actually got the makings of maybe a benevolent developer in the mix, where you're actually trying to put a scheme together which is not profit motive driven. Okay, yes, you do want to make a buck, quite rightly, but it sounds very, very good in terms of sustainability, having sort of larger gardens and growing. And I accept Lawrence's point that please keep this going throughout the whole process. Right, my point is this. I believe that this is a perfect site for social rental homes. Therefore, would you be willing to consider actually a small portion of this site where we can actually build, and there may well be other funding streams coming in. South Oxfordshire District Council are about to pass a motion where we will get a housing vehicle going forward. So therefore there may well be investment coming forward. We also have some money in the bank for social rental and affordable homes. As people know, affordable homes are not affordable in Henley. Anything that starts north of £400,000 for an affordable home is ridiculous. So my question is, what we need is 20 or, well, let's say 20 small units that are truly socially rentable. In other words, 500 a month region. And would you be willing to actually put a small portion of the site aside for that purpose? Thank you.
I'll probably ask Neil to respond to this because this is something we've actually touched on in discussions, and it's something I'm quite interested in. I'm involved with Thames CLT bringing forward a similar scheme. But Neil, I might ask you to respond to that because I know we've spoken about that. Yes.
Well, the answer is yes. I mean, over the discussions I've been having with the Borlase family over the last few years, it's something they want to be proud of. It is handing something back to the town. If that's a need that's really there, then I don't see why not. And we had actually spoke about this a little while ago. I believe we can do that. I don't see any reason why not. It'll have to be, obviously, I wouldn't mind having a separate conversation with you maybe about it to understand a bit more.
Yep.
But yes, I can't see any reason why not.
There are, just to say, there are external funding schemes that would actually sort of help in this process going forward.
Yes.
I should also say to Joseph, I know who's listening, I should declare an interest. I actually help organise the Henley Half Marathon as well, and we actually use this site. So we'll have to look for another site or do something else. But thank you to the Ball-Lazy family for that community activity, and also that the site is used for the or used to be used for the round table fireworks as well. So it's a good community site. So if we can have a combined use, it would be great. Thank you.
I do, just to add to that, the discussions that we're having with other landowner, I think we might be able to bring some of those back to the local area as well. So with better parking, the half marathon, swim route. So we could do that, I think.
Thank you.
Obviously, what Stefan is asking for, we obviously need a vehicle to move that forward, and the town council doesn't have one. And I think, as you just said, Jake, you have one in Thames, which was set up probably a good year ago now. And for people who don't know, is it called a community investment trust or similar to that?
Community trust.
That's right, yeah. And basically, it's people in the community making up a trust. And then these people obviously go ahead and try and build some social housing, obviously get funding from here, there and everywhere, which is Stefan is saying. And I think what's come out of this, of Monday night and tonight, is that it is possible to build social housing. I know a lot of people think it's a filthy word, but it's not a filthy word, because it's going to give people housing. It then becomes housing for everybody. And I think if each of these plots of land that are coming forward were prepared to give an acre, or it's not give, but, you know, obviously a reasonable price, give an acre of land, and we could easily build, you know, a dozen, 16, 18 houses on there, be it 1 or 2 bedroom houses. So I think, you know, we need to move forward. I know Alan Pontin is very interesting to help start something like that up. So yeah. But just going back to the car parking, and I know Neil mentioned about, you know, he is having conversations with someone else. I think you should bring that to the fore fairly quickly with the rugby club. I won't mention any names down there, but I think you should bring that forward pretty quickly to them to obviously get their support. Now, I know at the end of the day, you know, if planning permission was to be granted or whatever, you know, giving car park spaces for the rugby club wouldn't be a reason for refusal if you didn't give them. But I think, you know, the other things that you're saying, which are good for the community, because you know, we all know we've got a top line rugby team there, and we wouldn't want to see them fail through, you know, loss of a few car park spaces. So obviously you can take that on board. But I think if you can discuss that with them fairly quickly between yourselves and the Ball-Lace family, or whatever this other land you're looking for, will work in your favour, or one would imagine.
Yeah, very, very happy to do so. I know the rugby club well, so I'll be in touch with the right people.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I don't see any members of the public there, Kath, unless I'm missing anything.
No, I don't think we've got any members of the public this evening.
Yeah.
So far.
Okay, so we go back to obviously Stefan and any members of the working group if they have any more questions to ask. No? You're happy with everything? Just one from Patrick, then Patrick Fleming.
Yeah, it's a statement rather than a question. My feeling is, you know, we've had a lot of development to the south of the town, and this will go some way towards rebalancing. So I appreciate Michelle's comment about the fact that it's outside of the official built-up area, but when you look at Henley on a map, it definitely is in need of rebalancing, which actually this project will do. Thank you.
Was that it, Patrick? Oh, there you are. Sorry, you moved. Okay. Any more questions from anybody? Kath, Jody? No. Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. I think it's gone down fairly well. So we're not making any decisions this evening. Hopefully, I'll say, you know, COVID-19 and whatever, that we will be having presentations up in the town hall. Other, a couple of days up there for residents to come, and obviously they may be a bit fiercer than what we've been this evening. So thanks very much for your presentation. I've never seen Joseph. Can he just put his face forward so I can put a name to the face? I can't believe he's that shy. There he is. Okay, good to meet you. We almost look like the old man. Well, not quite. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, chaps. And if you'd like to leave us now, and then if you want to watch the rest on YouTube, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. I seem to keep losing people on my screen for some reason. I've lost. Stefan, are you still there?
He's the cat. He's the cat and the owl.
He is. He's turned off his camera.
You can leave your camera on, Stefan.
I prefer the owl and the pussycat. Can we go back to the owl and the pussycat?
You'll probably see me eating a pizza or something like that in a moment. So, we've got beef bourguignon tonight, which is rather nice.
Okay, as we're live, I think we carry on with the second one, which is Thames Poultry Farmhouse, and I've got a speaker of Louise Morton from Quadrant Planning. Have you got anybody else with you, Louise, or are you just on your own?
No, it's just myself.
You are.
My clients will be watching live, I assume.
Yeah.
But it's just myself doing the presentation.
Okay. Where I've got Mike Linsky, are you just a member of the public?
Sorry, I'm unmuting. Yes, but I was hoping to speak in support of the application.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. You can give a statement or ask a question. And Claire, you are with. You're muted.
Muted.
Sorry. Yes, I'm the same. I was hoping to speak in support of the application. Okay. So at the end, when I ask questions, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Louise, if you'd like to give your presentation, if you'd like to take the screen over.
Yep, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully you can all see that on your screens, can you?
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. I'm here to speak about Site 13, Thames Poultry Farmhouse. Just to give you some site context, you'll see its location there on the OS map and on the aerial. In terms of history, Thames Poultry Farmhouse was the original landowner of the neighbouring Thames Farm site. Some 20 years ago, the land was split into two plots, and the Bryant family bought the farmhouse in the northwest corner of the field, which is Site 13. The house is a 3-bedroom property on a large plot with views out over the neighbouring Thames Farm site. By the end of next year, when Thames Farm is built and complete or partially complete, it will be surrounded by houses. Just in terms of the landowner's position and the landowner's statement, it's their view that Thames Poultry Farmhouse is an obvious site to be allocated in the neighbourhood plan, being originally part and parcel of the neighbouring Thames Farm site. Its relationship can be clearly seen from the aerial plan and more so on the ground, and it's quite visible when you drive along Reading Road. And it would sort of square off the forthcoming development at Thames Farm. The Bryant family have been part of the community for more than 20 years, and they were actually very pleased to get quite a lot of support for their recent application, which we will touch on in the presentation. And it's their belief that this is the perfect site to be considered in the neighbourhood plan. In terms of the site characteristics, it's about half a hectare. The dwelling sits in in a large plot, as we've mentioned, with views out to the east and the south. You've got Bolney Lane that runs to the north of the plot, Wildwood dwelling to the west, and then Thames Farm to the east and the south. The tree belt across the north that runs adjacent to Bolney Lane is TPO'd. The site's not in the AONB, nor SSSI or Conservation Area noticed buildings. Geographically, it's about 200 metres from Low Ship Lake, 1.5 kilometres from Harpsden, and about 3 from Henley. You'll see that's the existing dwelling. And then on the right, these are the views out, the current views out, should I say, over Thames Farm towards Lower Ship Lake. So the planning application that we submitted, it was an outline application with siting and access to be determined at the outlined stage. It proposed the retention of the existing dwelling, which you'll sort of see there in the centre of the plan, and then 3 other dwellings, 2 4-beds and 1 3-bed. They were spacious plots, large gardens. We proposed an additional access to plots 1 and 2, at the top of the plan there. The northern tree belt is to be retained. Some C-grade trees would be removed to facilitate primarily plot 1 at the top of the plan there. But the site clearly is large enough to accommodate mitigation planting. So the consultation responses to the application, there was no objection from SODC's forestry officer, subject to tree protection and landscaping conditions. There was no objection from SODC's countryside officer, subject to submission of detailed biodiversity mitigation and enhancement measures. There was no objection from County Highways. There was an objection from CPRE and Harpsden Parish Council. There were 18 letters of support from local residents, 1 objection. The application was refused in June on the basis that it wasn't an infill site. Our view was that that refusal gave no consideration to the revised housing target contained in the local plan, and we will be submitting an appeal very shortly. So in terms of the current position with the neighbourhood plan, we submitted it as a potential site in the call for sites. AECOM's response, they gave it an amber. They felt that it did not currently meet local policy as it's not within or adjacent to the built-up area. However, the adjoining site has planning consent and is under construction, and this would change this. Hence, this gives us a platform to speak to you in more detail about it. AECOM's recommendations, the amber designation basically indicates that the site is less sustainable or may be appropriate for allocation through the neighbourhood plan if certain issues can be resolved or constraints mitigated, and that's what I want to show you tonight. AECOM also expressed the view that actually if you were to achieve the allocation of the required 156 dwellings, that probably couldn't be achieved on infill sites by the very nature of the current area. They advised that sites on the edge of the built-up area could be considered if there were specific exceptions or circumstances. So I just want to highlight what I believe are the specific exceptions or circumstances in respect of this site. Firstly, the changing context of the site as a result of neighbouring developments, sustainability, the density, and the fact that there are no technical objections. So just running through each of these. Changing context of the site. These are current or extant planning consents, which most of you will be familiar with. And just to highlight each of them in turn. First and foremost, clearly, is the Thames Farm, approved at appeal for 95 houses. On the left-hand side, you'll see that's an extract from their reserved matters consent, and you'll see the location of the proposed houses. on the mutual boundary with the Thames Poultry Farmhouse. Other planning consent nearby. On the left-hand side there, it's the barn, which is at the bottom of Bolney Lane, which will be converted for 4 dwellings. And on the right, that is the Mount Ida scheme that was run on appeal, which is just on the east of Reading Road. And then again, you'll be familiar with this. This is the Wyvale scheme for 40 dwellings just to the northeast. To summarise the change in context of Site 13, that is effectively what the site will look like in a few years' time. Moving on to sustainability, the site is highly sustainable. It's 200 metres from the existing built-up area of Shiplake, 500 metres from the train station and local facilities. Close to Henley Town Centre with all its associated shops and services. Crucially, it's walking distance from public transport, not only buses on the Reading Road to Shiplake and to Reading, but there are significant pedestrian improvements that have now been implemented, new pavements and crossing points, which will enable easy access to the train station. Good accessibility to local schools. There's a bus, or will be, a bus to Shiplake Primary School, which will be funded by Thames Farm. There's an existing bus to Gillett School. It's adjacent to the proposed allotments at Thames Farm and to the employment at Wyvale. In environmental terms, it's not in AONB, it's not subject to flooding, nor is it in the SSSI or considered to be designated as a high value landscape. Thirdly, in terms of density, the scheme we propose, 3 additional dwellings, would have a density of 8 dwellings per hectare. In terms of densities on neighbouring sites, Thames Farm has a density of 20 dwellings per hectare, Wyvale slightly higher, 22, the barn 13 dwellings per hectare, and Mount Ida 11 dwellings per hectare. So that just gives you the context of the neighbouring densities. It's our view that the low density on the site that we proposed in our application was appropriate because we felt it was almost a transition site between Thames Farm and Harpston, further to the west, and the lower density on Woodlands Road. We think that the density reflects the site's characterisation as developed countryside, and that's the description that the Thames Farm inspector gave that site. The other thing that we wanted to try and achieve with our scheme was we wanted to retain the existing dwelling, far more sustainable, and we wanted to create a scheme that worked with that dwelling. The low density also enables us to retain the woodland belt and to generally respect the setting of the neighbouring dwellings to the west. We could look at increasing the density. We don't want to match that at Thames Farm by any means, but there is probably scope to increase the density, and that clearly would help to achieve the target in the neighbourhood plan, but still respecting the site's characteristic as developed countryside. Fourthly, just to highlight again that there are no technical objections to the application in terms of highways, trees, environment, amenity, countryside and flooding. So technically, it's a sound site. And also there was significant support from local residents to the application. So just to conclude really, it's our view that Site 13 is suitable for residential development. We believe there are specific exceptions and circumstances which mean it should be allocated in the neighbourhood plan. The site's available for development and is achievable without any technical objections. The changing context of the site, which we believe is a material consideration in assessing its suitability for housing. It's in a highly sustainable location, and the low density we believe would reflect the locational characteristics of the site. So against the revised policy in the local plan, the allocation of the site would help meet the housing objectives. Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, Louise, thank you for that. Could you just give us the screen back, please?
Sure.
Yeah. Could I just ask one question before we open it up? What was the refusal reasons for the application?
There was one reason for refusal, and that related to the fact the site, they did not believe it was infill. Okay. They had given little weight to the Thames Farm scheme, essentially, and they said currently it does not adjoin the proposed, any development, and therefore didn't fall within the terms of policy CSR 1.
Okay, thank you. Jodie, did you want to say something there?
Is it worth me just reading out that reason? I have it up now.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time, that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll just read it out straight from the decision. So the application site comprises a residential plot lying in an area of countryside known as Harpsome Woods, beyond the edge of the built-up area of the nearby settlements of Lower Shiplake and Harpston, which is not identified for development in the development plan. As it would not lie within those settlements, the proposed development would not represent infill development. Instead, the proposal would result in consolidation of loose-knit buildings, leading to the encroachment of built form into Harpston Woods. This would detract from rural character and appearance of the site and its surroundings beyond the landscape boundary. Furthermore, it would provide a limited number of homes in a location that is not particularly accessible to services and facilities. And then they go on to list the policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, who would like to start the questions off? Kester, I can't obviously see you because you're still sideways on. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. When did Highways remove their objection to upgrading the track that you call Bolney Lane? That's a question to Louise Morton.
Yes, Highways do not object to the proposed development. We undertook a survey of the lane back in January, and that demonstrated that it was very lightly trafficked. I think there were 24 movements, sorry, there were 40 movements in a 24-hour period, and the average speed was 10 to 14 miles per hour. And they considered that the scheme could be accommodated off the lane without any harm to highway safety.
Did they not object to upgrading the lane all the way from Reading Road to Harpston Woods?
No, they didn't.
We have a disagreement of fact there.
Well, if that's the case, Kester, could you send Louise your written information?
I'll try.
If you could.
Yeah, there's no objection from County Highways to our application.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Jodie again.
Yeah, I can state that as well. I'm just reading it. It says local authority have no, highway authority have no objections.
Yeah, I think what Kester may well accept that. I think he was talking about if they were going to possibly increase the width of the road. I think that may well have been his question. Sarah, would you like to ask a question or not? You're muted.
No, thank you. No, I don't need to ask a question. I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll go to the working group. First of all, Lawrence, plant.
My question, thanks for the presentation, very informative. Considering the development that's going on around it, I really don't see how it couldn't be then viewed at some point as infill. It does square off the Thames farm plot, as you've well illustrated. I do feel somewhat sad that we have built, and in my generation, we will have built over such a large plot of land, but hey, it's happening. And on that point, if it is happening, I struggle to see how an extra few houses on such a plot, given the density of the housing around it, makes sense. It certainly doesn't help us get much closer to our overall housing number, nor does it, in my eyes, provide housing that Henley particularly needs. You know, my argument, although it seems completely counterintuitive to me, saying it's sad us building on our land, is if we're going to build on it, why not get somewhere closer to the densities of the sites around it? I'm by no means saying go towards 20, but at least a few more houses than would currently be proposed on the site. But that would be my kind of question.
Was that a question or statement?
Well, yeah, would it actually be considered? Because at the moment it doesn't seem like a particularly sensible use of the plot given the densities around it.
I could comment on the density. So yes, the density we proposed, for the reasons I've stated, was low at 8 to the hectare. If you added another 3 dwellings, for example, so we were proposing 6 plus the retained dwelling, 7, that would give an overall density of 14 to the hectare. So that sits below Thames Farm, but you know, that's the sort of level I feel might be appropriate. It does act as a zone of transition, really, with more spacious development towards Woodlands Road. But certainly, you know, 7 or 8 maybe might be the right sort of number.
Okay. Who else? Nobody.
No, Sarah.
Could I come back, Chairman?
You can in a minute.
Ken,
Someone said
Stefan and Catherine would like to speak.
Yeah, could you just put your hands up, Stefan, and so I can see you next time? Okay, that's fine. It's not quite your turn yet, but we'll get to you in a minute. I'm still on the working group at the moment. Okay, but I'll come to you. That's fine. Yeah, I'll go back to you, Kester.
Would Louise agree that there is a firm hedge and tree belt, not just to the north, but to the south, between the Thames Farm estate and the plot, and that this could very easily be further thickened? There's plenty of room for it, and it makes a much better screen than the side of the AONB would.
So the AONB is some distance away from this site. It's much further to the west. There's no intervisibility or connection between this site and the AONB. Currently, I think, as you've seen from the photographs that were in the presentation, there's an intermittent hedge along the boundary between Site 13 and Thames Farm. Planting is proposed along that boundary as part of the Thames Farm scheme, but I guess that will take several years to mature. A far better boundary, a more resilient, enduring boundary is the woodland belt that is TPO'd along the edge of Bolney Lane and the boundary to the west of Site 13.
But wouldn't, if I could come back again, wouldn't the road that you would make, to which you say there's no objection, in fact lead Thames Farm straight into the AONB?
You mean the access to plots 1 and 2?
Yes.
No, that's just a driveway into 2 plots on the site. And again, there'd be no connectivity between this site or Thames Farm with the AONB.
But wouldn't there be? How would the owners of your site get to Woodlands Road?
They would exit the site and turn left up Bolney Lane onto Woodlands Road.
Yes.
So they could.
So there would be a direct connection between Thames Farm and the AONB.
If you wanted to get in your car and drive, or if you wanted to walk, you could easily do that from Bolney Lane. You could walk west or drive west to the AONB, which starts about 300-400 metres, I believe, further to the west.
Not very far, is it? But thank you.
So can I just clarify that? Obviously, I don't know the piece of land. I know where it is. I don't know it as well as obviously Kester and yourself, Louise. So when you come out of the site that you're proposing, is all the traffic going to go east towards the Reading Road, or are you proposing it's going to go left up to Woodlands Road as well?
I think it depends where that particular householder wishes to go. But if they want to go to Tesco, then they will turn left towards Reading Road, and they will exit there onto the main highway network. Yes.
Okay, let me ask another question. Does that lane, Bolney Lane, does that go from the Reading Road to Woodlands Road? Does that go right the way through?
Correct. Yes, that's right. It connects the two.
Okay, I was unaware of that. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I think your question, Kester, I can't see why traffic from Thames Farm would want to come out of Thames Farm onto the Reading Road, then go up not a very good road towards Woodlands Road. I can't see the point unless I've got your question wrong. But anyway, we'll leave that for the time being. Anybody else from the working group wish to ask a question? No. Okay, I'll go to residents, and Stefan, are you speaking as a resident, or Catherine, or as a councillor? Who's speaking first?
Sorry, it'll be Catherine first, as a resident, and
yeah.
then I will speak afterwards as a councillor, resident, whatever you want.
Okay, so we'll go. This is Catherine Notaris speaking, who lives in Elizabeth Road in Henley. Okay, off you go, Catherine.
Good evening. Thank
you. Is this a question or a statement?
It's quite two questions.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Louise. Thank you for your presentation. Hi. As I understand it, the Conservation Officer's permission is dependent upon the delivery of a biodiversity mitigation and environment strategy plan. Can you please explain what you have in mind?
Yes, we noted that was a recommendation. I think at this stage, because we are an outline application and the two matters that we've sought for determination are layout and access, we acknowledge that landscaping and other matters are still reserved. But what I would say, Catherine, is given the size of the site and the density that we propose, there is significant scope to include areas of biodiversity on the site. And what I would say is that would be up for agreement with the council and other interested parties. But the main aim of what we've done on this site is to retain as many trees as possible to enable the plots to remain spacious, so that they have the ability to include additional planting that's consistent with the neighbouring woodland.
Thank you. My second question is this. You have some grade C trees. Could you just explain what variety they are and also how many you intend to fell?
Yeah, so in terms of the grade C trees, well, in terms of the whole site, in fact, we've undertaken a full arboricultural report. There are a number of trees that are U trees, graded U. They will be removed for good arboricultural practice. The C grade trees are a variety really of beech, Scots pine, Douglas fir, and we have to remove 2 to facilitate the dwelling on plot 1. One is a beech tree. It's graded C. It's got a large bark wound, moderate decay, and little future potential is how it was described in the tree report. The other is a Scots pine, and that has pruning wounds to the main stem. There'll be a number of 6 other C-grade trees within the woodland belt, which we're proposing to remove. We don't need them removed to facilitate the scheme, but as part of the arboricultural report, they were identified as trees that were compromising the growth of some other neighbouring trees, A-grade trees and B-grade trees. predominantly oak, Douglas fir and Scots pine, and the view was taken that those 6 trees should come out in order to better improve the setting of some of the A grade and B grade trees. So we acknowledge that we do remove trees. Many people on this working group will know with my other hat on, in that I'm more in favour of planting trees than removing trees. But I do feel that this site again is large enough to include appropriate mitigation planting, and we would be more than happy to talk about that in more detail at the right time.
Thank you. I have also, can you hear me? I've also developed a keen interest now about Douglas fir, Scots pines, oaks, since we last met, and the environmental importance of these evergreens and the oak species. So I'm very glad that you've taken consideration, and I'm sure your replanting scheme will please me if it were to go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Catherine. Stefan, do you want to speak?
Yes, if I may.
Yeah, go for it.
Please. I think it'll be. I think. Thanks, Ken. I think it'll be more of a statement than a series of questions. But I find this site to be absolutely ridiculous, and I'm with
Stefan, let me stop you there. I said I wouldn't accept any derogatory comments, all right? So I don't need that.
I'm talking about the size.
Sorry?
I'm talking about the size.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want any comments like that, thank you.
I find this site very problematic.
I can deal with that, thank you.
Thank you. Right, and I accept your admonishment, Chair. Let's start with the infill aspect. This is an infill between the Thames Farm site and countryside. My definition on planning of infill is a site between 2 buildings or building zones. In other words, there are buildings on the left, buildings on the right, and you put a new building in there. So this site cannot be considered infill. Jody has given all the reasons from the planning committee why it was rejected. First, the second thing is this site does not contribute anything to Henley's housing needs at all, because there will be no affordable, no social rental on this site at all. It does involve felling a load of trees. Can I talk about the road? I actually cycle up this road. The road is not tarmacked. It is a rubble road. It's a rubble road that goes from the Reading Road. It's a bridleway, actually. It goes from the Reading Road up to Woodlands Road. So anyone driving more than 10 miles an hour along this road would be doing their car an enormous amount of damage anyway. You would not turn left and go up to Woodlands Road, but the road would have to be enhanced and it would have to be tarmacked to actually upgrade the road in this rural environment. So it should not happen. It was mentioned that we have 156 homes to deliver. Well, we've already delivered them. We've already put a lot of infill sites and permitted development site houses in Henley. So we actually don't need this site. The other thing is I agree with Kester totally that in fact, opening up Bolney Lane and improving it would actually open up the AONB to it. So my final point is to actually accept that. My final point, which is really my final point. Just because there is a site with 95 homes on it, not Thames Farm, does not mean that sites surrounding it need to be developed at all. Thames Farm has around it 4 sides. Well, 3 sides because there's the Reading Road, but it has 3 sides around. Are we actually saying that other sites are going to be tacked on around this Thames Farm And when you've tacked them on, you're going to then tack on even more sites around it as well, so that Thames Farm actually grows and grows and grows and grows and eventually infills to Henley. So therefore, this site is not infill, and it should be resisted most strongly by the neighbourhood plan group. Thank you.
Would you like to respond to that, Louise, or I can take it as a statement? Entirely up to you.
I would respond on a couple of points. Thank you, Stefan. Yes, AUCOM acknowledged that actually if you're to meet your housing target, then you might need to look beyond infill plots. That's the first point, and that's in their report. Secondly, it's our view that it does meet the test of infill. It's not a gap in an otherwise built up frontage, but it will be when Thames Farm is developed, closely surrounded by existing development. So it will have Thames Farm on 2 sides, Wildwood on the 3rd side. So it will meet the terms of the infill policy. I don't believe that this plot sets a precedent for any bit of land that's attached or close to Thames Farm. Each site needs to be considered on their merits, and we've highlighted the very specific merits of this plot. Thank you.
Okay. Lawrence, do you want to speak or? No, okay. Right, I've got the 2 ladies. I'm not sure why you named Mike for, but there we go. And Claire. Would you like to change Mike, Kath? Could you give me your first name,
It's
Mike?
Nicola.
Nicola.
Sorry, I have to use my husband's account, so I'm afraid.
We can change
I
the
am
name
Nicola.
then. We can change the name if you like. Would you 2 ladies like to speak? If you do, could you just tell me exactly where you live in or around the area? I don't need to know the number, but if you can just give us a rough idea of where you live.
I live on Crosley Road in Shiplake and have done for over 12 years.
Okay.
I actually live in Hambledon at the moment, but I would like to be relocating to Shiplake or possibly one of the new developments.
Okay, fine. So would either of you like to speak?
Yes, please. I'd like to speak.
Okay.
Good evening. As I say, my name is Nicola and I've been a resident in Lower Shiplake for over 12 years, and I'd like to speak in support of the Thames Poultry Farmhouse application. Firstly, I believe the proposal makes no material difference to the local area. In fact, it completes the corner of the Thames Farm development, and rather than tacked on, which was the definition that's been used earlier. I mean, when we saw the map originally, it completes the corner of Thames Farm. It requires no additional support infrastructure. I understand the developers of Thames Farm are actually adding pedestrian passing places to Bolney Lane, and Bolney Lane in its current condition already supports the other houses that are on that lane. And secondly, I think the proposal will have minimal impact on an already developed site. So as a local resident, I fully support the application.
Okay, thank you. And I'll take that as a statement. Claire, would you like to say anything?
Yes, please, if that's okay. I'd obviously like to echo what Nicola has just said, and I feel that the site, like I say, it completes the corner for the Thames Farm site at the moment, and with the Wyvale site as well to the other side of Bolney Lane. I feel like it has considerations been taken into how best to join this site with these new developments that will be surrounding it, and also to keep it in keeping with the setting that is already there. And I feel that the planning considers, like Louise said, for replanting, to keep some of the woodland nature that will keep the site as it is. I've lived in the Henley area for the last 15 years now. I regularly walk up and down Barnley Lane, and it is an area that I would support. I feel that it's a considerate application for an infill site, bearing in mind the change in its surroundings from the Thames Farm development. And that's all I feel like I need to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Stefan, I'll go back to you and Catherine if you wish to ask any more questions. If not, I'm going to go back to the working group.
Well, the only thing I would say is that I really think that the neighbourhood plan group should go and visit this lane and actually see what it actually is. It is a dirt track that's rubbly, and it's really a bridleway for horses and for bicycles, and there is road access to the existing dwellings, but the neighbourhood plan should get on site and look at it, and you will see that this is a very poor choice of a site. That's what I'll say. Thank you.
If I could I just come back on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just to say that there are remedial measures proposed in terms of repair to the lane. It will remain as a country lane. We're not currently proposing tarmac, but there will be repairs, and it will be suitable for vehicles. And I would reiterate that there was no objection from County Highways to the additional dwellings that we proposed. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. You've made my point.
Okay, Alan Ponton, I've just seen you've arrived on the scene. Would you have any comments to make or questions for the application we're speaking to at the moment?
Not at this time, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Right, we go back to the working group then. I've got Joan Clark.
Just to say in response to Stefan that some of us have walked down and cycled down that track quite frequently, and it is, as Stefan says, it's not the sort of thing I want to take my car down. Thank you.
Okay. That's fine. Anybody else like to ask a question? Can you see anybody, Kath? No. Okay, Louise, thank you very much for your presentation and the responses that you've given. I appreciate that. And as I say, there'll be other presentations which will take place over the next, well, sometimes over a 6-week cycle somewhere where we can fit it in amongst COVID-19. But there will be a 6 weeks consultation with the residents at some time, and I can't give you dates for that at the moment because of the situation we are in. But I say thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are you going to leave us, Louise?
On mute.
I was just going to say I'll probably sit and listen to the next presentation, but if you want me to log off and go on to
no, you're more than welcome to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Have we got the other gentleman around yet, Kath?
No, we've got Tanya, but we haven't got Charles and Simon yet.
No, okay.
Want to hold
it for 5 minutes because I said it could be 30 minutes early, but
yeah.
You want to break for 5 minutes?
Should we have a 5-minute break and then resume at 8 o'clock then? Yeah. Can you get a message to them, Tanya?
I will do. Yes, I will do. It's just Charlie. Simon's not joining us actually, so I'll message him now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So we just have a 5-minute break. Are we going to leave everybody on? Yeah.
Yeah, we can just leave it running with no one here.
Are we still live streaming though?
We are. I can stop it for 5 minutes if you want.
You can, if you can, please. Yeah.